morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are right now. I'm Natalia Zmyslowska, and I'm a senior software engineer working in the design system in BBC. Our topic today is about creating an easy way to find dependencies and dependents of the components in the library. Have you ever been in a situation where you wanted to change or enhance the component, but struggled to find its owner? It happened to me so many times, as our library consists of over 150 reusable components and containers. Some time ago, we conducted user research about improving the navigation in our Storybook and internal onboarding UX designers process, during which we found out that many people struggle to find the owners and maintainers of specific components. It made it more difficult for them to collaborate with other teams. In our testing sessions, we heard a lot of people say, if you didn't know name or create the component yourself, it's almost impossible to find it. We quickly realized that the addition of discovering the component's owners in Storybook would benefit everyone who uses it, not just UX designers. All stakeholders would find it much easier to onboard new designers and developers from other teams, giving users greater autonomy in finding what they need around the design system. Not only would navigation be easier, but also each theme page would demonstrate the breadth of the components and containers that particular team uses. Our fantastic UX designer, George, came up with the idea of creating a page for each of our capability teams, which would detail which components and containers that team uses. His idea was that users would be able to navigate to the component they needed to find, even if they didn't know its name. For example, if they knew it was being used in account team, that would narrow down their search whilst also not putting emphasis on knowing the name of the component. But you know what? As the plan was forming in our heads, we realized that unfortunately there is a problem with our approach. How do we maintain all the data we need to generate the theme pages when it constantly changes? To build a theme page, we would need a list of every component a team uses, and this was a challenge given the amount of code and dependencies we have in our repository. On the top of that, new components are added and used in new ways by different teams so that data would change regularly. This would be really difficult to maintain over time. We didn't want to manually create and maintain the data for the theme pages. Work smart and not hard, as they say. We wanted automation. This problem led us to building on some custom functionality called ItDepends. ItDepends started as a hack project to enable Storybook users to know where a component is used and see examples of its use on the live site. It was designed to help users to understand the component's purpose and to decide whether they could reuse it. The feature depends on some in-house functionality to generate the data files which map all of the components, their usage, and their dependencies. These dependencies are auto-generated based on what a component imports and where that component is imported. Let's look at the more technical side of it. First, we decided to write a function that would create a list of components in Storybook. That list would be passed to another function in the ItDepends, which would check the import and export tree for all components in the repository by parsing the component's JavaScript file and generating a JSON object containing a list of each component with the corresponding components that it uses or is used by. Next, Combining both outputs would generate a list containing all the teams and the components they use. We leveraged our detailed code owners file to programmatically establish which team maintains and uses which component. The final output would be the big list containing the information about teams and the components they use. Unfortunately, it's not perfect yet. There are a couple of known limitations with the component dependencies functionality, and the most important one of them is import depth. Because we parse the component's JavaScript files to determine usage, only a depth of 1 is currently supported. For example, only components which directly use or are used by the component are included in the list of dependencies. For example, on the media experience container, the media player component does not appear in the users list. It's because the hierarchy for that container is as follows. Media player component is used inside media item component, which means it's not directly exposed to the media experience container. That means a user needs to click through to the media item component using the link in the users section, where the media player will then appear in the users list. Once we overcame the difficulties, we created a page per team using the components from within our components library. To facilitate collaboration between teams, we decided to add a short description about the team and what department they are part of. To make it even easier to reach out and collaborate, we included a link to the dedicated help Slack channel of that team. It is saving us a lot of time in time-consuming Slack conversations, pointing people in certain directions, whereas now they know who owns what and have a Slack channel ready to open if they need information. As you can see, Storybook gives us a lot of flexibility. It allows us to solve the problem by implementing additional functionalities. It improved navigation between our own components and also demonstrated the breadth of the components and containers that each particular team uses. Thank you for your attention, and a huge shout out to the whole WebCore team and the BBC that contributed to ItDepends and team pages. Thank you.